Welcome everyone to week 4, session 1. Today's outline is first we'll be covering the final assessment, just an overview today, while tomorrow I'll be putting it together, kind of the usual format we'll follow this week, the final week. And then we'll do the week 3 review. Today we'll start and then take a break and then continue that throughout the rest of the session. So that's our breakdown. I don't have any of the new announcements on here, but we can go ahead and talk about those really quick. There's just a couple of them. The grades are ready through week 3, so anything that was turned in yesterday by about noon was the last time I did grading. So anything that turned in after that won't be graded yet, but anything that was turned in by noon yesterday, say a little bit after noon from what I remember, will be up to date. So now is a good time to kind of take a look at your grades, see where you stand in class, see what you might need. Again, anything from week 3 is acceptable for points. If you were one of those students who had some late work from previous, make sure that you get that finished by the end of this week. I know there was a couple that were talking to me by email. So just keep in mind that this last week is this last week, and week 3 work is accepted, but anything before that typically isn't. But if you have some special circumstance, we can maybe work something out for some of the previous work before week 3 to be submitted late work. Again, it's best if you can get it in on time. If you're struggling to get your work done, remember that the final assessment this week is worth by far the most points. So really, if you get that, it's almost worth double what turning in late work from the previous week is. So really, if you just have time, have a limited amount of time, it makes a lot more sense to just do the final assessment rather than to do week 3 late work. But if you can, it's best to get all of those things finalized. So the other thing that I'll mention here is Christy Paulson's schedule is now here up to date. So that's changed from last week. Someone needs to mute their audio. So make sure you get with Christy if you have any issues with the coursework. Once again, that's her schedule slightly different than it was last week. So she's good. She can help quite a bit, give you feedback, give you, basic pointers here and there. So she'll meet with you in a Zoom room and actually go over your work a lot of times. So she's worthwhile to see. If you need some extra help with any of the coursework, be sure to stop in and see her. All right, let's move on to week 4, final assessment. So this is the trade show booth. The graphics that you'll be doing for this are, they're not provided here. So you'll have to go and find them. And basically what you're going to do is once you find them, like this link, for example, you don't have to use this, but this is just one example you can use. And you'd want to actually, what you'll do is you'll create, in this case, we need at least one panel. So here we've got something that's 2 panels. You've got this big backdrop here, and then you've got this smaller one. So there's a total of 2 panels on this. And here it's just kind of shown from a different angle. You can choose one or the other, or you can use both, whatever you'd like to do, really. We just need to see it on one example, one actual mock-up example where we're presenting it in its environment. So in addition to that, you're going to want to create it, you'd want to do this anyways, create it in Photoshop or Illustrator. Even InDesign is possible. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but I suppose you could. I think Photoshop or Illustrator are the best choices for this final project. So, I probably would stick to no more than like 3 panels at most. This shows 2, and you need more than 1. So, I guess if it's kind of a judgment call to a point. If you have 4 or 5 panels, I'm not going to take points off, but I would say concentrate on quality more than quantity on this, and just try to make a limited presentation as best as it can be, rather than include a number of panels. And I was asked earlier, how many panels you should include. Probably 3 is a good max number, but really, if you absolutely find something that you have to add an extra panel to, I'm not gonna say no, don't do it. It's kind of a judgment call. So roughly 3 is good. So this, you can find mock-ups in many other places. This is just one example you can use if you want. So I'm gonna probably be using my own file, something different than this. This looks like the download button, the blue one, if you're gonna use this. I think this is an ad. This is an ad, but this is the actual download. So if you want to use that, you can. So different booth needs to have more than 1 panel. Yeah, but probably no more than 3. So it can be for a company and or product of your choosing: cars, health food, stereo equipment, nonprofit, or just because it's not listed here doesn't mean you can't use it. There are some others. Books, movies, those type of things are good. Just again, best judgment on this. So PDF of all individual panels, and then a JPEG file of the 3D mockup. JPEG or PNG, I don't mind, either or. But make sure you have a PDF as well of those individual panels. And again, I'll go over this tomorrow when I put this together. So for the JPEG or 3D mockup, you'll use Photoshop, and you'll place whatever you created in either Photoshop or Illustrator, possibly InDesign if you want, and you'll actually place it on in its environment. So on that 3D mockup, it'll be in the environment like this. You're seeing it here, but you want to see those individual panels also. So let's take a look at some student projects. These are just, this was how someone turned it in, and I don't mind. I think this kind of works, but the problem is it's all a JPEG. So they did this wrong, but I can see what's going on. They get a few points knocked off for having it in the wrong format, because this should have been in a PDF, this here. And really, you could, if you wanted to put it all in one PDF file, you could do that too. You just place it in, for example, the Illustrator document. You place your PSD file on an artboard, and then you just export it the way you normally would, and you'd have it in all one PDF file. So you could do that, that'd be fine. But make sure that you have those panels that are the right sizes, and you're gonna have to experiment more or less as far as based on what I would do to approach this is I would find the presentation that you want. If it's this one, you're gonna have to make something that's long and horizontal, and kind of estimate that. And you don't have this ability to measure it, but you're gonna have to approximate the size of this. So this, I might say, if I was doing this, it's about twice as long as it is tall, right? So a 2-to-1 ratio, that's what I refer to as a aspect ratio. Because if you look at the height and you turn it sideways, it's about 2 times as long as it is. So that's easy enough. Let's say, for our sake, we can, let's work at 100 DPI, that's good. And in real life, you might work at 300, but for trade show graphics, a lot of times it's surprising you'll work at a lower resolution with stuff like this. So, you might want to say 10 inches by 20 inches at 100 DPI or 300 DPI, and then you would blow that up quite significantly. I mean, it's kind of pointless in our case to work with these giant files because we're just sending them back and forth for grades, and we're looking at layouts, and we don't really need an actual file size. So if you just want to estimate it using aspect ratio sizes, that's fine in our case because we're just looking at that width to height aspect. And even if this is, let's say, 60 inches tall by 120 inches long, I don't need to grade a file that big. It's not really helping any. So you could maybe make it, like I say, just keep that aspect ratio within reason, 10 inches by 20 inches, and that would be that width to height aspect ratio. So that would work. It might not print. It wouldn't print. It would have to be done at a higher size, but that's okay. It's not a print class, and it doesn't really make much sense to make this to actual print size in this particular case. It's just kind of a mock-up, maybe something for something to show clients, maybe if you're going to make a bunch of them, or several other people are maybe making these on your team, and you didn't necessarily have to make it to spec. You were just making it to kind of show really quick in a demonstration or a PowerPoint document or something that was just some sort of presentation. So you don't have to actually make this for printer specification. You can make kind of a version of what this looks like. So think of it that way. For example, if I was going to choose this 10 inches by 20 inches at 100 DPI is fine. And that's enough for me to see what you intended for your presentation. And it's enough to work with and drop it into something like this. By the way, if you don't want to download this, if you're getting weird effects, if this blue download button doesn't work, you can also just take a screenshot of this and just put it in as it is. Again, it's just a presentation, so feel free to kind of work with it. Now this is one example. If you want to find another example, be my guest. This is just one suggestion. You can find many other trade show booth mock-ups that you can use and might fit this project a little bit better, just depending on maybe what you're after here. So use one of these images to mock up your booth. Okay. So here, move this out of the way. So here, right here is the link. This is just giving you some more options. So this website here is giving you some more options, but this is a couple that you can work with. So that's one. There's 3 panels here. You don't even have to put anything on this center one, but sometimes that's useful. Make sure that these 2 have a panel and they're different slightly. So even if they're the same, if you want to flip them inverse, do the inverse of this side, that's fine, but don't make these the exact same. If you do make them the exact same, then make this one in the center different somehow. So we're looking at least 2, possibly 3, so 3 could be different. But we're looking at least 2 panels. Let's look at this other one. So here's another you can use. Again, I just estimate the size of this. This would be with the height, you can approximate it. It's believe it's the golden mean, so it's 1 to 1.618 if you wanted to show that. So this one would be the golden mean sideways, and this one running across. Pretty sure this one is from what I remember, but this one might be, this one looks like a 1 to 2 something. So, you know, you can just also measure them in either Photoshop or Illustrator and then measure your document size based on that. Same with this, and this doesn't have to fit the whole thing. It could just go, you could just do like a little strip in the middle if you wanted. So it's kind of up to you as far as how you want to do some, I mean, even if you wanted to wrap it somehow or, you know, do something different, you can take some liberties and kind of make this work like a trade show booth would, which is really whatever works, whatever kind of makes that booth interesting. Here's a project that someone did. You can see they've got their logo, so you're going to want to include a logo of some sort for whatever you're doing. And this has a little bit different panels on each side, if you notice. So it's got the same logo, but they've changed up the items that are on here. So this is kind of your typical thing of what you probably see in trade show booths. So it's another example. Remember, this is just your preview. He also had to make a PDF of these individual panels. So he had 3 individual panels that he did separately. There's this. Got 2 different panels and then the center one. They're all different. Those work pretty well. Here's how he did the 3 separate. So hopefully that kind of shows you an example and get some idea. You can start today if you wanted. So make sure this one's a little bit hard to see with, it's kind of nested within all these links, but you can use one of these images to mock up your booth, or you can find your own, or you can, you know, use one of these, use this one here if you want. That one's kind of neat. But there's plenty of them out there if you want to use something else. But those are some options to use if you want. So I think for today, that's pretty much all I'll cover on this. I don't really have anything else to mention unless you guys have any questions. And we can go ahead and get started with the review. Any questions on the final assessment?